had this one situation in Northern Ireland a couple years ago where I was to facilitate a conference in a very traditional way to talk about Catholic and Protestant problems in Northern Ireland. And the people at this conference had gotten families from both sides of the divide to come together to talk about what's it like to be a Catholic, what's it like to be a Protestant, how can Catholics and Protestants work together for peace in Northern Ireland. Well, those people are sick of talking about that stuff, you know. It hasn't worked for years, and it didn't work this time. I got there a day late, and the people who were facilitating the conference had been working with these people for a day. And they had been using very traditional techniques of talking about the surface presenting troubles, you know. So by the time I got there, it was like people were ready to kill each other, you know. Catholics and Protestants were going, I'll tell you what it's like to be a Protestant. I want to kill that damn Catholic over there, you know. It was almost like World War III. So I walked into the place and I thought, okay, let's go for the gold here. Let's talk about what's real. So I said, okay, I want all of the women in this group to go to that side of the auditorium. I want all the men in this group to go to that side of the auditorium. And we're going to talk about what it's like to be men and women in this place. Forget about all that other junk, okay? So, to make a long story short, I had them together for 1 hour, women talking with women, men talking with men, and they did it. I mean, I had to kind of prod them a little bit because it's in Northern Ireland, it's a little funny to talk about anything that has to do with sexuality, but they got into it, God bless them, you know, because they were interested in it. And then the hour's over with, and I bring them back together again, and I line the group of men up on this side, and the group of women up on this side, and we flip a coin to see who goes first. The women won the toss. And I said, okay, I want the men to listen. I want you to shut up, don't say a word, just drink it in, because this is a gift you're going to be given here of stuff you don't know. You think you know about women? You don't. They're going to tell you. And I said to the women, okay, sisters, you've got the floor. You have to tell these men what it's like to be a woman in Northern Ireland, because they don't know what you have to put up with. Well, I could barely get out of the way before the women are jumping up, just screaming. I mean, they really had some agenda. They were wonderful. They were eloquent. They talked about their pain. They talked about the incredible sadness of waking up in the morning and your son is gone, and 2 weeks later he comes back in a bag because he's got his head blown off by the British Army because he went to join the IRA. And they blame their men for that, and they're screaming at these men saying, why do you let our sons do this? Why do you kill our sons? What are you doing with this craziness? You have all the power here and you never ask us for any of our feelings about it. We can't share with you. When we try to share, you make fun of us. And, I mean, the pain and the anger and mostly the sadness came out of those women was incredible. They were crying and sobbing with one another. I remember one instance where one of the guys grabs onto the guy who's sitting next to him and he says, do you see that woman? That's me wife talking. He says, she hasn't said that many words to me in 20 years. What they're not focusing on is that these two guys that are hanging on to each other, one of them's Catholic and one of them's Protestant. It never came up. It never came up. Okay, so then it's time for the women to quiet down. They've said their piece, and now it's time for the men to say something. So it takes a while, you know. They didn't get into it as quick as the women did. But after a while, this one old man in the back stands up, and he's got a tear running down his cheek. And right there in Northern Ireland, when a man cries, you know you're doing something important here. And he says, I heard me wife saying that my son came home in a bag. She's right, but she blames me for it. Sure, and I didn't send him to the IRA. He never talked to me any more than he talked to her. I don't know how to talk to my son. My culture doesn't allow men to talk to each other, and they really don't allow men to talk to their sons. My son and I never said 100 words to each other in the past 5 years because we had a fight, and we had a falling out, and we've never patched it up. And then one night he goes away and he comes back 2 weeks later dead. And we'll never heal that, and I'll carry that pain to my grave. But I didn't send him to the IRA. I don't know who did, but he never asked me, just like he never asked his mom. He said, I can't talk to any man, I don't know how. Another guy jumps up and he says, yeah, that's true for me too. He said, you see that man over there? I've sold that man 10 mules. I've never said 100 words to him. We don't know how to talk to each other. Another guy pops up and he says, don't you know what it's like to be a man in Northern Ireland? He said, every time you women ask us a question, we have to know the answer. And if we don't know the answer, you laugh at us and you make fools of us and you tell us we're not a real man. And another one of you tells us that I'm not a man if I go out and I make a living that's below the dole and I have to go on the dole. Then you tell me I'm not a real man. He says, all you women do is tell us what it's like to not be a man. You never help us to find out what it is to be a man. You never help us share our feelings. If we cry in front of you, you make fun of us. He said, so what it's like to be a man is that if I don't know the answer, I have to lie about it. I have to fake it and pretend I do, because to be a man, you have to know. He said, we're dying in here, we're dying inside, but we can't let you see it. And the women are going crazy, you know, they're crying and sobbing. One woman gets up and she says, that's my husband, I gotta go to him. And the other women pull her back and say, you stay in your chair. He's doing his work over there, don't you rescue him. And I go, yes, right on, women. It was wonderful. It went on and on and on, and the tears came, and oh, God.